So, with the House of M starting on Monday, I thought it would be interesting to spend the weekend and basically do a series of videos, or maybe just a video, really as kind of a test to see how you guys would feel about us going through the chronological order of events in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the reason why is because I think it would be fun to compare and contrast what's going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe to what's happened in the comic books, that we can get this really cool idea of how things are unfolding in a way that really presents the Marvel Cinematic Universe as its own separate reality from what's going on in the Earth 616 universe. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be focusing on everything before the 20th century, that is to say, everything before the year 1900. And so what we're going to find is that while a majority of things that were given dates really took place during the 20th century, prior to the 20th century, we're going to find ourselves delving into the realm of conjecture and speculation. The reason being because we're not really given any dates in terms of when things happened. We're just kind of shown things as they've unfolded up until really the Marvel Cinematic Universe began to unfold with regards to the Earthbound characters. So what we know is that we can consider this, I guess, point zero. We can consider this the very first thing that really took place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when the cosmic entities created the Infinity Stones. Now, this information comes to us from the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is where a majority of our information will come regarding the cosmic events that have taken place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But what we know is that at some point along the line, the cosmic entities did create the Infinity Gems, or the Infinity Stones as they're referred to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just don't know when or why. Now, unlike with the comic books, in the comics, the way the Infinity Stones were created, or the way they came into existence, was because, again, if you recall our discussion about the Infinity Gauntlet, we had talked about how, as Thanos was explaining it to us, in the very beginning of the Earth 616 universe, there was simply just a being. There was some sort of being. Now, we don't know if this being existed alongside the other cosmic entities, although most likely it did, due to the fact that characters like Galactus were born, or I guess existed prior to the Earth 616 universe, and then came into existence with the birth of that universe. But at some point along the line, this, I guess this being, for lack of a better word, had come across the information, or basically learned that because of the fact that there was really no equal to it, that it had delved into the realm of loneliness. It had basically succumbed to the fact that it is absolutely alone. And so what it did was it dispersed its energies among 6 Infinity Gems, and then the Infinity Gems were scattered among the cosmos. Now, that's the Marvel Earth 616 comic book version. Again, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we don't know why this was done. And in fact, we may never figure out, we may never find out why this happened. It may be that this is Marvel simply just saying, this is how the Infinity Stones came into existence, and that'll be it. Or we may learn later on, maybe even from Mistress Death or somebody like that, the reason why these Infinity Stones were created. But what we do know is that after these gems came into existence, after the Infinity Stones came into existence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that the Celestials somehow got a hold of the Power Gem. Now, again, this comes from Guardians of the Galaxy, and with the Power Gem, the Celestials began going about the process of judging other planets. Now, this is when we begin to get a little bit of a, I guess maybe mishmash here and there between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the comic books. In the comic books, the Celestials were, of course, responsible for the creation of life on the planet Earth. More so than that, they were responsible for the creation of mutants. And so what we had seen is that while the Celestials had gone around and judged and traveled to other planets, the Celestials had never actually wielded the Infinity Gems in the Earth 616 continuity. And so this is really interesting for us, because we're basically seeing what happens when beings like the Celestials gain absolute power, or a vast amount of power, using the Power Stone. Now, what we don't know about the Celestials is whether or not they're the same kind of Celestials we saw in the Earth 616 universe. And the reason why is because with the Celestials, as they're presented to us in the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're using the Power Gem, and the Celestials have no real need for the Power Gem, because there really isn't anybody that could really oppose them for the most part in terms of their physical prowess, or the power that they're capable of in the Earth 616 continuity. Now, there are characters like Galactus, of course, Eternity, and different beings like that, but in terms of your normal mortal Earthbound characters, or even immortal characters, none of them really possess so much power they could really challenge the Celestials. And so it's interesting to see the Celestials wielding the Infinity Gauntlet are wielding the power gem, which begs the question, are the Celestials not cosmic entities in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Are they simply just the result of aliens who have progressed to a certain degree that they have a vast amount of power and then wielded the power gem? Now from here, again, as the collector had shown us in Guardians of the Galaxy, we had seen where the Celestials had at some point in time, I guess maybe either succumbed to the power of the power gem, or at least recognized that it was really more power than they could control. And so they locked the power gem away on the planet Morag. Now, of course, the planet Morag is the planet that Guardians of the Galaxy itself picks up on when we first meet Peter Quill. Now, again, along this timeline, continuing on, we eventually come across a point, again, we don't know an exact date here, when the Kree show up on the planet Earth. Now, once again, keeping in mind that we really have to delve into the realm of conjecture and speculation here, we don't know why the Kree showed up to the planet Earth, but again, referencing back to the comic books, the Kree had arrived on the planet Earth because the planet Earth was really this strategic location between the warring empires of the Kree and the Skrulls, and it was really one of these instances where the first person to basically grasp this planet is going to have a strategic benefit over the other. And so when the Kree had arrived on the planet Earth, they began experimenting with humans, and as a result, they created the Inhumans. Now, the Inhumans, of course, developed their powers when they used the Terrigen crystals. And as we had seen, the Kree had apparently created something called diviners. Now, this again is a breakaway from the Marvel comics. And the reason being is because the diviners didn't really exist in Marvel comics. The Terrigen crystals were in fact housed within the Empire of Attilan. And Inhumans would actually have to go through a relatively similar process to what Skye went through in order to become Inhumans. That is to say, they would basically walk into a giant room. They would be engulfed in the Terrigen mist. They would take on this really solid, maybe rocky form, and then emerge from it like I guess maybe like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. And so as a result, they would then be endowed with whatever form I guess they had previously they were supposed to take on, given the genes of the Inhumans. And of course, if you're curious about learning more about the Inhumans, I have a video on that you're welcome to look at. But again, we're not really given a time frame as to when this happened. All we know is that the Kree most likely left the planet due to a conflict between themselves and the Inhumans. The fact that the Terrigen crystals were being housed in these diviners that were later discovered during the perhaps Agent Carter TV show, or during the lifetime of Agent Carter before she I guess gained her own TV show and was expanded on during the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, tells us that that basically the Kree had most likely been using these diviners or these Terrigen crystals as a way to maybe keep the Inhumans under control. We don't really know, but most likely the Inhumans had somehow found a way to rise up against the Kree, and as a result, they had most likely managed to kill either one or two Kree, which is the reason why we had seen a dead Kree in the episode of Tahiti, and then in turn, the Kree left the planet. And so what we do here is we actually leave a lot of the Earthbound stuff behind in terms of the Kree and the Inhumans, and we actually jump to the realm of Thor, to the realm of Asgard. And if you recall Thor: The Dark World, one of the things, or I guess the focal point, and one of the things that Thor had talked about was something called a convergence. And a convergence, as it was explained, was when all 9 realms line up. And when they do, individuals can actually jump between each realm. They can literally walk through a dimensional barrier and into another realm. And for those of you guys who had recently finished our discussion on the incursions, this is basically what that is. This is an instance whereby dimensions somehow basically press in on one another, and you can literally walk from one to the next as if you were passing through some kind of invisible wall. Now, because this incursion had taken, or this convergence had taken place, this is what Malekith and the Dark Elves had used in their first attempt to take over Asgard, to basically take over the 9 realms entirely. And so this entire backstory was given to us at the beginning of Thor: The Dark World. This is when we had seen Odin telling us that his father was able to lead a army against Malekith and the Dark Elves, and then take the Ether back and keep the Ether under control. Now again, the Ether is simply another aspect of the Infinity Stones. This is actually the Reality Stone. And so the question that we have to ask here is, how is it that I guess the Ether had come into existence, or come into the hands of Malekith? How it was he was able to get a hold of it? We don't know that. We really haven't been told how it is that that's happened. All we know is that once Bor, the father of Odin, had been successful in I guess in defeating Malekith and the Dark Elves, that he had hidden the Ether away in some other dimension, some place where he figured nobody would be able to find it. But of course, as we we had seen with Thor the Dark World, Malekith and a handful of Dark Elves were able to keep themselves in a suspended animation of sorts so they could escape the judgment and the defeat of Bor and then eventually rise back up again. Now from here, we travel back to Earth and we pick up with the Battle of Tonsberg, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure how to pronounce a lot of these phrases from Norway, but this is the conflict we had seen that was the basis behind the beginning of, the beginning of Thor. This is when we had seen the Frost Giants attack Jotunheim, from Jotunheim, and them attack, Midgard, or attack Earth for the very first time. This is when we had seen Odin, who had become aware of this conflict, assemble an army and then attack Jotunheim, actually go after the Frost Giants in their own dimension. And this is when Odin had come across the son of Laufey, the child that he would later adopt and name Loki. But what we eventually find here is that there comes a point whereby Odin hides the Tesseract in Norway. Now again, we don't know how it was that Odin had gotten a hold of the Tesseract. He simply just had it. Now we may learn in other stories, maybe in tie-ins to different movies or some aspect of another movie, how it was he was able to gain the Tesseract, but the fact that he had hid it away in Norway would eventually lead into the beginning of Captain America the First Avenger, when the Red Skull travels to Norway under the pursuit of finding different Asgardian artifacts and items of legend that leads him to taking the Tesseract away and then using it as a power source. And so again, this is going to bring a conclusion to the events of the 20th century, but I hope you guys are really beginning to see how everything is starting to work together, how it's all starting to come together. But again, because of the fact that this is all pre-20th century, we don't really have any dates. We can't say with any absolute certainty that these things did happen in this chronological order. We can say that with other films because we can literally see those events unfolding throughout other films. We can see elements of The Incredible Hulk affecting Iron Man. We can see elements of Thor the Dark World affecting other movies. We can see these things as they unfold, and so we can relate them to one another. But because all this is stuff that's simply just hearsay, more or less, because it's tales that are told to us by the collector or things like that, again, it's really just the realm of speculation, conjecture, and just good old-fashioned haphazard guessing. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. There you can keep up with all the updates from Comics Explained and talk to me directly.